Auth.
All right. Thursday of week number 9. Yesterday, we learned about authorization and authentication, and we specifically looked at what it takes to build those functionalities into the server, right? What we finished with was a server application where we have a user, and we also added roles into the mix. The user needs to provide a username and a password when creating an account, and then they need to log in with those credentials. And then we made the middleware use the JSON web token that was returned, expecting that it be attached as the authorization header in the request. And through that middleware that we created yesterday, we have built a middleware function that will intercept the request and determine whether or not it should or should not be passed on to the next step in the equation based on where you are adding that in. So that's nice and all, but again, we made an assumption that the token was going to be stored as an authorization header. And we looked at how we did that with Postman, but y'all are not building just server applications and interacting with them through Postman. You are building a full stack web application, including a React client side where you are going to need to incorporate that token. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about how we can get that token in there, how we can build out the registration side, and also protect some routes. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and add in a couple of things here. I just have a very basic client app. I literally just did create Vite. But we have some stuff that we need to add in. I'm going to add in some things just for styling purposes. I'm going to add React Router DOM so that we can actually navigate. And then, as we did with snippets and Kenzie Cart, we're going to use Axios for our HTTP requests. So in my server, or in my overarching project, I only have server declared as a workspace. I want to add client as a workspace as well. So from my root, I will run npm init-w client-y. And that will add in the client as one of my workspaces so that now I can add libraries into my client. So I want React -bootstrap, and I'm going to do at 2.8 Bootstrap 5.2.3, React Router DOM, and Axios. Cool. So on my client side, let me just add in Bootstrap 2. I'm going to get rid of this ESLint-RC because I don't want to deal with it. I do have one more script to add. And then add it to the concurrently. Right. In my source main.jsx, I'm going to import bootstrap dist css bootstrap.min.css. And then we're also going to import our browser router from React Router DOM. And then I'm going to get rid of strict mode and just replace this with browser. All right. So what I need to do is find a way to, well, first of all, what I need to do is I need to actually submit my registration form, my sign-in form, and be able to actually start that process. So I'm going to make some pages. I'm going to make a registration, or I'll do a sign up page.jsx, sign in page.jsx. Index.js. And then in our app, get rid of all this shit. Oops, this stuff. And get some routes going. And we'll have a route for the path of sign up with an element of sign up page and a route with a path of /sign in with an element of sign in page. All right. Let me just make a header real quick so we can navigate about components. I'm going to get rid of the assets folder because I'm just not using it. Header.jsx. Navbar, nav container from React Bootstrap. Import link from React Router DOM. So I'll get my navbar going. Navbar variant equals dark, bg equals dark, container, navbar.brand as a link to the home page, Auth demo, and then we'll do a navbar.toggle, aria controls top nav, and then a navbar.collapse. We'll do this expand equals medium, navbar.collapse, ID equals top nav, nav class name equals ME auto, MS auto, nav.link as a link to /sign up, nav.link as a link to sign in. So in my app, I'm just going to drop that header in there. All right. So I'm going to run npm run dev. There we go. Okay. So let me just delete everything in here and in here. And beauteous. All right. So we've got our sign up page and our sign in page. Let's go ahead and really, I'm going to deal with the sign in page. We walk through the sign up page. We'll do both. We're going to do both just because I want to be able to create an account. So we'll start with sign up. In our sign up page, we need to create our form. So I'm going to bring in a container and we'll say create an account. And then we'll have a form. Nope, not for React Router DOM, from React Bootstrap. On submit is going to be something. We'll make a handle submit where we'll run e.prevent default. All right. So we made it so that on the back end, we needed a username, a password, and a confirm password when creating an account. So those are the three fields that I'm going to create. Form.group, class name equals MB2, form.label, HTML4 equals username, form.control, type equals text, ID equals username, name equals username, value equals, and this is going to be form data.username. I need to add that state in. We'll do that in a moment. On change, we're going to run a function called handle change. Let's get that all going. right? Obviously, we need to have our state. So initial state, and have a username, empty string, password, empty string, confirm password. It's important that you make sure that these line up with what's on the back end. Y'all should probably know that by now, though. Const form data and set form data equals use state, initial state. Handle change, set form data, e.target.name, e.target.value. All right. So we've got that form group. Let's do another one for password, 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 password. And we'll do another one. Confirm password. This is still going to be a type of password. And there we go. And then we'll have a form group with a button of type submit. Variant equals primary. Size equals MD. Create account. All right, there we go. Looking pretty nice. I'm going to do this here real quick. Row, column, extra small will be 12. Medium will be span of 8, offset of 2. Large will be span of 4, offset 4. And we'll put the form in there. There we go. Okay. So when we create our account, we're not doing anything crazy. We're not going to be dealing with storing a bunch of stuff in state or using a context API or anything along those lines. When we sign in, we should send, or when we create our account, I should say. So I'm in the wrong freaking thing. So we're going to go ahead and change this to sign up page. Sign up page. Brain is mush today, and I don't know why. Sign in page. Sign in page. Nope, that's the right one. This one. Okay. Sign up. There we go. Create an account, username, password, confirm password. So when we create our account from here, all we're going to do is send the data to the backend. We're just going to sign up. But what I want to do is I want to create a hook specifically for this. The reason why I want to create a hook is because we are going to need to use a context API. We're going to need to create our own context that will store effectively which user is logged in, so that when we go from page to page, we're still going to have access to who is logged in. Because from the client side, we're going to need that information. The server side is also going to need that information, but that's going to be from elsewhere. So to start, before I can even worry about the hook, I need to worry about my Axios instance. So I'm going to make a custom utility called api.config.js, because this is going to be my Axios instance itself. This is going to be what is sending the request to the backend. And so I want to make sure that I'm sending it to the right place. I want to cut down the need to type out http:// localhost 3001, blah, 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 every single time. So I'm going to import Axios from Axios, and I'll say const API equals axios.create with a base URL of http:// localhost 3001. /API. Everything's going to /API anyway. So why not? Now, export default API. And let's go make some hooks. Use auth.js. X. I'm going to create a couple functions here and return them. And this is kind of like how Snippets does it. Const sign up. Const sign in. And then I'll return an object with sign up and sign in. My sign up method, I need to get a username, a password, and a confirm password. My sign in method, I'm just going to lay it out here. I need a username and a password. And for sign up, what I need to do, this is going to be asynchronous, is I need to get my response as await API. So import that custom instance .post /auth/signup, right? Because my full URL that I created on the back end is localhost 3001/API/auth/signup. And then that will run the sign up portion. And the data that I need to pass in is an object with a username, a password, and a confirm password. Now I'm going to put all this in a try catch. And I'll just do throw error for now. But if we get that response back, then we're going to return true. That's all I care about. You know what? Response.data. We'll return response.data. Okay. So on my sign up page, I want to call this function. So I'm going to bring in sign up equals use auth. And this function will allow me to make my request. So I'll call sign up and pass in form data dot username, form data dot password, and form data dot confirm password. Then let's see what happens. If I click create account, we get our response that says created. Good, perfect. So what I really want to do then is after I create my account, I should probably sign in with that data, with that account information, right? So then I will call sign in. with form data.username and form data.password. And what does sign in do? This is where things are going to start to get interesting. When we sign in, we need to try catch. This is an asynchronous function. Response equals await API dot post /auth /sign in. And then the object is going to contain username and password. When we get a response back, we need to do something with it. So let's look at what that response actually is before we really continue. So I'm going to go ahead and hop into my database. And delete my 2 users that exist. And let's create a new user. Some person 123. I'm making the same credentials. That's why I wanted to delete it. Create account. And now the data, remember that token that we got back yesterday, that we sent back yesterday. That token, as we learned, needs to be saved as the request header, the authorization header, right? That was how we were able to access a protected route. So in order for our React application to access a protected route, then what we need to do is take that token and make sure that it gets sent with every request. And that would be really irritating to do if we didn't have something like a custom API configuration, a custom Axios instance. So what we can do is we can write a function that will accept a token as a header or as a parameter, and then save that so that all future API calls include that as the authorization header. So I'll say const or export function set auth headers. We'll accept the token. And if there is no token, then we'll clear the headers. So API dot API dot defaults dot headers dot common authorization equals an empty string. We go double check on this syntax. Do Axios set default headers. Square bracket. Okay. So if no token is included, we're going to just set it and return. Otherwise, we are going to api.defaults.headers.common authorization equals our token. Or specifically, bearer space token. Then, when we get our response back in the sign-in method, we'll import set auth headers and pass in response.data.token. Right, because response.data.token was our token. So we're going to take that token, pass it into the set auth headers function, which will now configure our API instance so that all default headers contain an authorization header with a value of that bearer token. So I'm going to go delete the user that I just created. And finish up this process. So as long as we're doing all of that, technically, we can then navigate to some protected route, right? So const navigate equals use navigate, which I need to import from React Router DOM. And we'll navigate to, I don't know, somewhere. I'll just make another page. Dashboard. Navigate to / dashboard. We'll start there. So if I create my new account, create account, now we're in dashboard. Cool. Now, this is where we need to add a couple of layers of a couple of levels of complexity. One, we are going to need to store some data in a kind of global state. We're going to need to store what's the user's name and all that, you know, who is this person? And we should also probably save the token. Why should we save the token? Well, if I want to be able to leave this page and come back, then I'm going to need to get that token back somehow. So I'm going to store it in my local storage. So in my use auth, let's do local storage.set item token response.token. So let's go ahead and do the sign in portion. So we know that the sign up part works, or the sign up part. Let's do sign in. So I'm going to effectively copy this. We're going to cut it down immensely. Okay, import container, row, column, button, form from React Bootstrap. We don't want confirm password. And this should say sign in. And then up here, we're just starting with sign in. Then we need to get our form data. Don't need sign up. Oh, what did I do? Okay. Sign in. So when we sign in, what we need to do is we need to take that token and store it in global state. So if we're going to have that in global state, then we need to have some contexts. And we're going to have an auth context. Auth context is equal to create context. Auth provider. Steps children. And we will return auth context.provider. with the children there. And so what we'll do here is, I may need to mix some things up a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to need to bring this into that auth context. So copy this into here. So auth sign up, sign in is equal to use auth. So I'm going to have my state auth set auth equals use state. And initially, my state is going to be user, which is going to be null, and is authenticated, going to be false. Do turn auth, sign up, and sign in. So then when we sign in, we're going to save the token in local storage. And then we are going to set auth is authenticated as true. And the user is going to be, I'm probably going to need some data from the back end. So let's do this. Let's just do username. We'll change something on the back end. In my auth routes controller, do token sub is going to be user.id. Username is going to be user.username. I want to basically have the payload be, everything that was in the payload is going to be here. So let's do this. User is going to be that whole thing. That way I can say the user is going to be response.data.user. Okay. So when we sign in, we should be getting that data back. We're going to set the token in the auth headers. We're also going to set the token in our local storage. In fact, let me just do user data as response.data, the whole thing. That way I'll be able to just grab that and store it in state when we need to. Okay. And then I have my set auth. And there we go. Okay. So I think we should be good there. If there's an error, throw the error. So let's go give this a try. If we go open up and look at application and go to local storage, this is old. So if I go some person 123 and I put my password in, sign up, token undefined. We changed all that. Did I shut my server down? Oh, right, because I'm still using this one. So I got to delete that. And then in my auth context, export function, use auth. I am going to need to export default auth provider. We'll come back to that in a moment. Then I just need to change all this stuff. So in my sign-in page, use auth. There. Same thing from here. Okay. Let's try this one more time. Get rid of that. Some person 123 222. Sign in. Reference error API is not defined. Okay. So then in our auth context, we need to import API from /hooks/ nope, utils /API config. Okay. What's wrong now? Set auth headers is not defined. All right. There we go. What do? And we have that whole object in there, right? That needs to be JSON stringified. And there we go. So let's delete that. Try this again. Sign in. Boom. User data, token, and the user that has the sub, the role, and the username. Okay. Perfect. But we need to save that user in this state, which we are doing. And that means that in our auth provider, our value needs to be auth, sign up, and sign in. And now I'm going to make another hook called use provide auth. That will pull auth, sign up, and sign in from use context, auth context, and return auth, sign up, sign in. All right, so where I'm calling use auth, use provide auth, and then I want to make sure that I'm using the context. So in my main.jsx, auth provider, wrap the whole application, including the browser router. So now when I'm signing in and saving that user into the context state, that means that now I can access that auth data from anywhere in my application. So let's make another function called sign out, where we're really just going to delete everything. Is authenticated is going to be false. User is going to be null. Local storage dot remove item, user data. There's almost certainly a more efficient way that I could be doing this, but at this point, that's okay. Okay. So when I say that I can make this user now accessible anywhere, let me show you what I mean. In my header, let's say that what I want to do is I only want it to show one of these two things. It'll show sign up and sign in if we have not signed in. But if the user's already signed in, I want to sign out. So first, let's go ahead into the auth context. And in our provider, what we're going to do is when the app first loads, so use effect with an empty dependency array, we will check to see the law if the user's data is in the local storage. User data equals local storage dot get item user data JSON dot parse or null. If there's no, or if there is user data, then what I want to do is call, do this, set auth. Better yet, I'll just move this in there. Then set auth. JSON dot parse user data. And then in our header, we can pull auth from use provide auth. And let's do this. Console log auth. Let's see what happens. Refresh. Look at that. There's our user in state. So now what I want to do is I want to say auth.is authenticated. Then we're going to show a nav link. That when we click it, we're going to sign out. Otherwise, we're going to show the option to sign out or sign in. So on click, we need to, in our use provide auth, we're returning sign out. Sign out. We refresh. Oh, right. It's not that we want to set state as do the whole thing. JSON parse user data. We want to set auth as is authenticated is true. And the user is JSON.parse user data dot user. And then we also want to call that API utility function to set the token as the header. So I'm going to say we'll go back and do that. I think that should be fine. Set auth headers user data dot token. Okay, so that should make it so now all of our outgoing requests include the token, and we have our user data in state. So boom, see, look, we're logged in, and now the sign out button is there. I click sign out, boom, now it gives us the ability to sign up and sign in. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. All right, so but what I want to do now is I want to make it so that that dashboard page is actually protected. So let's go into that dashboard page and bring in auth. I want to basically say if auth.is authenticated is false, then navigate away. By default, though, I have auth.is authenticated as false. So what I actually want to do is null. That way, what I can do is I can say if auth.is authenticated equals false, we're going to return. There's a navigate component from React Router DOM. To sign in. So check this out. If we go to dashboard, it doesn't work. Okay, why? Okay, so we also need to add this. If the user data exists, then is authenticated is true. Else set auth is authenticated. It's false. User is null. And there we go. So if we go to dashboard, when we're not logged in, it sends us to sign in. Go to do all this, sign in, and now we can go to dashboard. Click sign out. Boom. Perfect. Okay. Let me go into our sign in page really quick and sign up page, because there we go. We've got our navigate dashboard for the sign up. I still want to do that here. Navigate dashboard. All right. So let's say that what we want to do is send that request to that protected route, right? Fortunately, because we have our utility and we've set the auth headers, that's all we need to do. Now, any request that we send is going to include that auth data. It's going to include the token. So what I'm going to do just real quick is in our dashboard page, I'm going to add a use effect. And we'll say if auth.is authenticated. Let's do this. We'll say every time that auth.is authenticated changes, we will send the request. So API dot get slash is API slash protected. If you can read this, the protected data was accessed successfully. If you can read this, the data was not accessible because you're not logged in. Let's do this. If we go to slash dashboard while we're logged out, you can read this. Data was not accessible because you're not logged in. Okay. Sign in. Data was accessed successfully. So in order to send the request from the front end to the back end in a way that does get the token included, it's just a matter of adding in the utility function, set auth headers, and calling it when you get the token back in response. And then this, frankly, this is just one of the many ways that you can protect a route. You'll notice that in snippets, there's actually two separate routers that it uses. There's two separate sets of routes. There are the routes that should be accessible if the user is not logged in, and the routes that are accessible if the user is logged in. That's another alternative. So if you would prefer that to something like this, just go take a look at snippets as an example, because snippets uses a very similar process to what I have used here. Now, what I want you to recognize is that now in my dashboard or just anywhere, if I pull auth from use provide auth, and I need to access data about who is logged in, auth.user, sub is their ID, uname is their username, role is their role. So you have access to this now anywhere within your application to do whatever you need to do with it. Compare this to the user ID of a piece of data that's on the screen. Check the role to see if the user should be able to even access a page, whatever it may be. Print just a little welcome message with the user's username. It's there in state. So that about wraps up what we had for today, which is the client side portion of authorization and authentication. Again, there's a number of different ways that you can go about doing it, but this is going to be, I think, overall the simplest. The important part is that you make that context available, because you will likely want to access the user's data across multiple pages. Cool. So that's all I got for today. I'll get this. I mean, the recording is going to be automatically posted. I'll post the code right after this. But otherwise, that's all I got. Have a good one. Catch you next time.